Well, hello everybody. Spirit of 420 here, because everything I do is so 420, including opening up with a dab this time. And it's a dab of reclaim too, so really going to the bottom of the barrel. But hey, I just didn't feel like getting anything else ready. I do have some shatter, and I'll do some of that here in just a moment. But I had to have at least this opening dab. And it does get rather creamy. So I hope you're all having a wonderful Thursday. I myself, if I'm being perfectly frank and quite honest, not having the best day. Fighting with the the wife never makes a day good. That always adds quite a bit of stress to the situation. Let's just put it that way, right? Loving somebody is not easy. We've been together going on 17 years, and all I can say is sky's death. You know, it's not unusual. This is literally textbook psychology, but sky's death has been anything but forgiving to our relationship. And in fact, it's put a lot of stress. Uh, she is his stepmother, right? Um, but that doesn't matter. She's been his mother since they were 7. So, you know, it's funny. Um, One thing I'll say, I just want to stop right here and say it because I already saw somebody come in and leave, and I'm sure that nobody really wants to see me when I'm in this way. So I may just stop for a while. Um, I've not been under these kind of conditions before, um, and what I mean by that is that it's just extremely hard. I feel like I may have had a breakthrough today. Only time will tell, and what I mean by that is by breakthrough I mean a way looking at this from a different point of view, trying to look at it from a point of view that um, how do you say uh, trying to change my perspective to change my mindset, right? That's what I mean by point of view. If I can do that, right, successfully, then I can start to move forward. But the problem is right now, and part of what I'm dealing with, on a personal level, is that I am literally stagnant, right? Not just, I mean, I feel stagnant in like every way, shape, and form, you know. And all the signs keep telling me that I'm not doing anybody any good anymore. And what I mean by that is, everything was cooking right along. And I don't want to sound like everything was perfect because it wasn't. To me, and in a way, it was. And what I mean by that is that there were problems, but as the problems occurred, I was able to handle them and move forward. And it didn't matter what level of problem it was. And I almost feel like I wonder if I didn't somewhat dare uh, the universe into seeing how much I could handle. You know. Um, because I didn't feel invincible, and I knew I wasn't thinking that I was gonna live forever or anything like that. But there was a part of me that felt like there was nothing that I could not handle, right? And that's almost a jinx, I think. I think in a way, quite frankly, I may have jinxed myself when I thought that. And that's what I mean by the universe. The universe is hard, right? It teaches lessons in a very harsh um, manner, right? And I say this because no matter what I do, it's being you know, thrown, I don't want to say thrown, but definitely pushed in my face no matter what I do, whether it's a documentary, a film, movie, song, book, article, talking to a friend, going to see a friend, going out, doing anything. Everything just, it gets thrown in my face. All right. And what I mean by it gets thrown in my face, well, look at that. There's a piece of shatter that I almost missed. So I'm going to go ahead and that's a good opportunity. There's a sign. It means do that shadow. I'm going to combine that shadow with some of this here reclaim for those of you who don't know me very well. Look at that. Nice little dab there. Now we got some reclaim on top of that. That's nice. So anything, excuse me, as I was saying, it seems like everything I do, I can't get away from it. And even though I'm stagnant, I'm obviously not. The reason that I believe I'm stagnant is because I'm unable to figure out right now what exactly I have to do to move forward. That's why I said I'm hoping that I may have had a breakthrough, changing the mindset, changing my, perspective, if you will. Hold on, though. It's time to do this fat ass diggity dab. It's funny because I'm like a, what do you call it? Dinosaur. Because everybody now has gone to the bangers. I fucking can't stand them. I cannot stand them. They a banger, goes in here. It's just a little crystal tub, right? And they heat that tub up, drop a much bigger dab in there than what I do, and then they put a piece over it. And as I wash it, I mean no disrespect to any of my friends who dab this way. I just don't get it because I'm watching it, and the first thing that I think about is the amount of smoke. I'm yes, admittedly so, an old school smoker, and to me, you worship every dab. It's waste not, want not. That being said, I will still toss out a roach all the time. I'll throw a tray out because I get back as well, and I don't look at it stingy, but I don't. To me, I don't do that all the time, right? And what I mean by that is I don't sit there and waste smoke. I can't stand it. One of my pet peeves when sitting in a circle of friends and smoking is when you pass it to them and they don't take it and they just sit there. Hold on. I am guilty of it, by the way. I don't know if anybody's ever told you, but most of your pet peeves you're guilty of. So I know that I do this, and I try to stop it. I'm trying to get better. Especially, I'll tell you one thing. It's easier when it's not like a joint and it's burning. It's easier when it's a bowl because my wife and I will always cover the bowl like right after we hit it. Anyway, just cover it, put it out. That way, again, conservation. I'm always thinking of conservation. Waste not, want not is a huge mindset for me, period, in life, right? So I watch these folks dab, and it's quite, it is a little mind-boggling, little blades of glory throw back there, but yeah, I don't get it. I see so much wasted smoke. And here's the thing. Now, I don't care what they say, but the longer I hold the smoke in, yes, I know that there is a factor of lack of oxygen to the brain. I get that. But at the same time, the longer that you hold the smoke in, the more your body can absorb it. And when they hit it like that, when anybody hits it like that, it's like, I mean, they take like 3, sometimes even 4 deep breaths, and they don't really hold it at all. I'd rather take 3, 4 dabs with the same amount that they put on that one dab and not lose any smoke and even hold it for a couple of seconds. You know, I don't know. I kind of have like that golden rule of 3. Hold it for about 3 seconds and then let it out. Always have been. Moving forward, let me just get a little piece of shatter out here. I'm going to do another. That tasted really good, mixing the reclaim and the shatter. I have some sugar downstairs. I just don't have it up here, and I didn't feel like getting it because, well, if you're not paying attention, I'm fighting with my wife, and she's downstairs. So when we're fighting, we tend to stick to our own space, you know, which I think is probably common for a lot of, you know, the real key is to try to fix it before we go to bed tonight. That's to me, that's the ticket, if you will. So we didn't fight last night, and we went to go see Indiana Jones, being old as fuck. I think it was Indiana Jones and the old ass dial, or the old ass dude. No, I'm teasing. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So, first of all, let me say this. I have been watching Indiana Jones since Raiders of the Lost Ark. Obviously, I'm literally that old, and Father took me to see it in the theaters and loved Indiana Jones. Second Indiana Jones, I was actually old enough to ride my bike up to a theater. It was one of the first. This is Temple of Doom, one of the first times. And I can't think. I think it was actually the very first movie I went to go see on my own. I saw several there, including Cobra, Raw, because not only was I old enough, but this place would always let us in like they never carded. So needless to say, particularly the movies that I mentioned, Cobra, Stallone, and Raw, Arnold Schwarzenegger, those two I absolutely was not old enough to go see, but I went to this little theater because I could ride my bike to it. I knew the place. I'd simply put my lock on. Sometimes I wouldn't have to. I mean, they literally could see the bikes from inside. And it was a really nice place. They only had 2 theaters. Old theater. And what I mean by that is probably, so I was going to this in the 80s. This was in Lexington, South Carolina, very small town. I'm guessing that theater probably was put up back in the 50s when, you know, it was nice to have 2, right? And they were kind of offset. Anyway, back to the story. I'll just say this. Indiana Jones, been seeing them all my life, right? Funny enough, I didn't get to see the 3rd one in the theater, or the 4th one for that matter, and I'll cover the 4th in a minute. But the 3rd one I just didn't get to see because by the time the 3rd one came out, I was now smoking a lot of pot and hanging out with my friends and getting high. And going to see movies like Indiana Jones just wasn't as important. Having said that, I sat and watched it with a chick while we were getting high over summer break from my sophomore to junior year. And, or was it? No. Freshman to, it was my sophomore summer, I think. I'll have to look it up and make sure. But I'm trying to put it together, and I say that because the next summer I lived with my uncle before my junior year, so I know it wasn't that summer, and I didn't really go back and see my father much after that. I should possibly imagine. So yeah, I'm pretty sure. No, I don't think. Period. Let's just stop there. I don't think. Here's the rest of the show. No. Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny. Went in. Oh, let me cover 4 real quick too. I must say this. That one was probably the beginning of major disappointment. And I do want to say one thing. Up until this newest one, Spielberg directed all of them. But I think the bad reception that he got, and then the fact that they dumped Shy right? Like I was absolutely convinced that Indiana Jones was over after all that went awry because they had such great plans for the next Indy, right? He really wasn't supposed to be doing a 5 if you know how things go. The Passover was in 4. And, you know, sadly enough, Shia LaBeouf became the bad boy of Hollywood. And, you know, most big production houses and big names kind of removed themselves and distanced themselves from him. Obviously, Spielberg was one of those. I can only assume now, and I say this, but I can only assume that between being the bad boy of Hollywood, he must have had some bad blood with either producers or even Steven himself to not, you know, to be removed. You know what I mean? I don't feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but Steven's been around a long time and he's dealt with a lot of stuff, and he's never seemed like a total douchebag. I mean, they're all douchebags. They're so rich, and I mean that with no disrespect to anyone. They get that rich. I haven't been as rich as they are, but I have had times where I was extremely wealthy, and it changes you to the core. And if you're not prepared for it, it typically sours you. Let's just put it that way. You may not even appear sour, but ultimately it's all about money, and then that's sour. So to me, something, you know, not I believe that Spielberg, it would take more than just the reputation of him being a bad boy. And I don't know it. I didn't look it up. I don't care. But my assumption is, if you look it up, they probably either he and Steven or he and some of the producers and you know, big money from the Indiana Jones crew just don't get along. I mean, he's apparently hard to work with, much like what has now come apparent of Henry Cavill, who has lost Superman and lost The Witcher, which I find interesting because you're talking about two extremely starring roles that people really like him in. So you really got to be a jerk, right? So back around, after seeing 4, I was first floored that they were even doing a 5, right? Then when I saw what they did with 5, so I mean, it was okay. And if you're gonna see it, if you're a fan, you know, it was kind of nice to now have seen the newest Indiana Jones, which I have a feeling they're gonna find a way to continue, but without him at some point, like the original plan. I'm sure that's what he wants. He's gotten hurt. I'm pretty sure on the last 2 because these stubborn old man, not to be rude to him, but he is getting very old. He obviously won't let them do anything to his hair, because his hair, you could clear it was like looking at my grandfather. And what I mean by that is, like, when they would show shots from behind or side or whatever, he is losing hair the same way that my family loses hair. We don't go bald. We just start, like, it just gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. Pray I don't go bald. And I follow suit with that because we tend to have hair all over our head. You know, my grandfather had hair all over his head, but you could hardly tell anymore because it was so few and far between. It's, you know, I guess it's a form of balding, but you never really lose all your hair. Anywho, he clearly, that was no doubt is his real hair. And I don't want to give any spoilers, but the beginning of the film, so this is not a spoiler when I say, but I'm going to try my best to skirt around it. When you go and see it, remember what I said then, but it was hard to believe on multiple levels. Number one, I don't believe that he is now doing anything other than running. I mean, no offense, but the guy, I mean, how old is he? How old? I meant to look that up before I came on tonight. Let's just see when he was born. All right. So Harrison Ford, born in 42. Okay. So the dude just turned 81. Is that right? 81, 82, 81, 42. 1942. Holy shit, man. I did not know that this dude was that old. I honestly was thinking like 72, 73, because obviously they're making him look good. But that means he made this, at best, he was 79, maybe 2 years ago. Usually at this point, though, it's only a year ago. So I've found that it's usually only a year ago. Funny enough, unless something happens. If somebody dies, then the production stops and everything halts. I mean, I can give you a few examples, but I'm not going to worry about it. You can see this. And then they'll end up doing it anyway. You know, they have to find lots of times it's out of respect, mourning time. You know, there's a time of mourning. And then there's also the reality that they have to find a way to complete these pictures, usually when they lose somebody. Or series for that matter. Sometimes they just don't. They never recover. I mean, one that they never recovered from was Phil Hartman, in my opinion. You know, they had a great show, News Radio, and they tried to bring Lovick in. No offense to John, who is a very funny guy, and I love him, but he's just not. He was not the character, and he's no Phil Hartman, no offense. I truly believe that Phil is of the caliber, as funny as he was. By the way, that's a Troy. You can't see it, but there's a Troy Aikman. See the right there, this red, yellow? That's a Troy Aikman doll from back in the day when he was alive, and it actually has a little chip that, you know, if it were ever to be open, you put it next to Troy. He talks and he says a few of his lines. I'm Troy McClure. Like, that's one of them. But I truly believe had Phil not been murdered by his wife, he is the kind that would have ended up hitting a role, because he was also very good with drama. I mean, he really was, believe it or not. He was one of the best deadpan, but he could do drama, and I've seen it, and I think he would have ended up getting at least nominated for an Oscar, if not possibly winning one in his older age. And what I mean by that is I think he was one of those guys that would have done it, you know, maybe in his 50s, 60s, maybe even in his 70s, when he just finally hit a home run with something because he's been doing it so long. But I believe he would have been one of those guys. That said, back to Indiana Jones. Knowing now that the guy was basically, let's just say he was 80 when he was making this, for all intents and purposes, 80 years old, and you're doing a movie that's highly based on action, that just becomes hard to believe no matter how good CGI thinks it has gotten, right? And I will tell you this, again, no spoilers, I won't tell you where and when, but there are a couple times where I'm like, come on, man. Are you kidding? This is 2023, and you're still allowing me to clearly see, like, the people that walked on the Titanic back in fucking 99, man. Like, I don't know if y'all remember, but, you know, we liked it and thought it was good and it was cool, but you could clearly see that those were digital people. It's 24 years later, and you haven't gotten better at that? Come on, man. What bothers me is one scene that relies on CGI will be so good, but then that will happen, and you're like, how? How did this? Anywho, Dial. First of all, I haven't had a chance to look it up, but I will, and I'll come back and talk about this another time. But my guess is that this thing is real, because there has yet to be an Indiana Jones that the thing they were after wasn't something that was of, you know, fact, right? It's just what they do was not, because all this already happened, right? Which is another thing to remember when you're watching Indiana Jones. And I find it funny because we let it go, you know, with the first one, and then they've just taken advantage of it. So there's just this chronicles of stories of Indiana Jones in the past that never happened. We love it. We eat it up. But let's look at it real quick, right? The first one was the Ark. highly coveted, highly religious, right? The second one, he wasn't really even after anything, the stones, but the stones were, I don't know that those stones are real. I don't know that the stones, when it comes to the Temple of Doom, that's the one that feels most made up, where they wanted to create something, right? Because look at what they did when it did not work, because it was not that great of a movie, and it was not received well, just so y'all know, and if you remember. As a kid, I thought it was cool, but even as a kid, even then, I was like, there were scenes where it was too over the top. And what I mean by that is, what's that word? Way too far fetched for belief, right? After the failure of 2, they came right back and played out the recipe by going after the Holy Grail now. Another hugely iconic religious item, right? And it was a home run. They also brought Sean Connery in to add to it and some other stuff, but they really repeated the first one much more in 3 than in 2. In fact, 3 was almost not shot for shot, but I mean, basically it was one, and it was very believable because of the situation, and it's him saving his father, blah, blah, blah. I liked it. I love it. Last Crusade is one of my favorites. Then they do the Crystal Skulls, and I thought that they got a little hokey because they went with space. And there's, don't get me wrong, I know that that's one of the biggest beliefs, but there's so many things they could have done, and then to me there were so many things that they didn't cover, and it really just felt like, this is just my personal opinion, but when I watched 4, number one, I knew they wanted to transfer it over so they could have a new character, and that was supposed to be shot, blah blah blah. When they chose Crystal Skulls, and then I watched the movie, I was like, man, did these guys did they sit around and like study Ancient Aliens and go, hey, let's make a movie based on all this shit, right? Because that's what it felt like. Maybe y'all remember, maybe you don't, but Ancient Aliens had become hugely popular, and people were watching it out the ass. So now we get to the Dial, which is Archimedes, right? And I gather that not only does it exist, but I'm assuming that at least one half is probably in our possession somewhere. That's my guess. But it's funny because here's what I thought was kind of funny about it. The fourth one failed, right? 2 and 4. 4 was again a failure, and they had changed up 4 in one major way. Well, in a couple major ways, but the biggest one being what he was going after, and the comparison of it compared to what else he had been going after in the previous ones that were all religious based in one way or another. It was the Russians that were after him, right? And I also love how they always bring in some new guy that's been with him all the time, but we never saw him before. And that's just a side note. That was hugely evident in 4. I'm sure y'all seen the preview. So one of the things that they brought back, that the best part of 2 was Short Round, right? That was everybody loved him. And so they brought back a Short Round, so to speak, with the character Teddy. Again, no spoiler alerts, but I mean, you see the previews, you see the kids. So. But again, here's the thing: 1, 3, and 5. You look at it, it's always Germans. It's just funny, like they keep going back. And I will say this: I've watched all the Indiana Jones. I enjoy all of them. I own 4 already, the first 4, and I'll end up getting this one when it goes down to $5. I'm not going to spend more than that, just to give you an idea. And in regards to what I give home, we'll take in just a second. That is, I was just going to get back to a particular page here. Oops. Oh, for me, because it's Indiana Jones, there's a few exceptions to the rule. And what I mean by that is, when I rate a movie, you've heard me say many times, anything over 7, go get in the theater, right? And I truly believe that. But there are some exceptions to where it can score less, if it's a fan favorite, if it's part of a franchise that hey, it's not going to be great, but I want to see it, like what I'm kind of thinking might be Sherlock 3. Who knows? Just on a side note. That said, I have to give this a 65. 65. I want to give it a 70, but the fact of the matter is, there's so many times it's hard for me to believe that that's even Indiana Jones, because I know how old the dude is. So it was time to give it up a while ago, and they must have thrown a shit ton of money at him to go on 5, because it's just so evident. That's all. And I don't mean any disrespect, Harrison. I really don't, man. I love you. I got respect for how long you've been around. You're a pilot. You're a badass. On a side note, a lot of people don't know the story of Harrison, and I may not get it perfect because I haven't looked up his Wikipedia. I just know the story through the grapevine and through interviews and other things like that. But he had pretty much given up acting before he became the great Harrison Ford. And he was working on the set of Star Wars, and they were doing auditions, and they convinced him to be the 5th audition I don't know if the whole thing was planned. I'm not going to even speculate on all that. But they convinced him because they wanted him to fill the 5th slot, and he did, reluctantly, thinking that it was really just him to fill a slot, right? Like, not that he was really reading for it, and ended up getting the part, and the rest is history, right? He had just finished a movie called American Graffiti, which he was absolutely great in. I loved it, but he didn't have much of a big role, but he was awesome. But yeah, I give it a 65, but I think if you're a Harrison Ford or an Indiana Jones fan, you have to go and see it. It's highly unbelievable in a lot of parts because of his age, and I am still being kind. I mean, if it wasn't Harrison, if I didn't have the love, and I like the guy that they picked. And what I mean by that is the James Mangold, I think is how you pronounce his name. Right. I put it in the thing. Yeah, James Mangold, who directed it. I absolutely dig. I dig the stuff because I looked at what this guy has done as well. I mean, and to give you a few examples, Logan, one of my all-time favorite Westerns, 3:10 to Yuma. He did. I haven't seen it yet, but I've only heard great things of Ford versus Ferrari. The Wolverine, yeah, Copland, that's an oldie but goldie, and I liked it. So this guy's been around for a while, man. He's been making movies for a while, right? And that, coupled with my love of the series, coupled with my respect and love of Harrison Ford, is why I give it a 65. If you take Mangold and Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones out of it, I know that sounds funny, but if you take those factors out of it, I wouldn't give this movie a 30. Sorry. So, what does the rest of the world think? Rotten Tomatoes says 69%. IMDb says 6.8, so they're almost right on target with each other. 82% of moviegoers have given it a thumbs up on Google. However, on Google, it's only getting a 3.7. Of course, I say however, but that's actually that's like a 7.2. Or excuse me, that's like a 72. You get what I'm saying. When you look at the percentage, what that is, that's still 72% of people giving it, saying that it's good. And I just, personally, I think a lot of them are like me and they love it. I'm not going to bore you by reading the other reviews, but I would not be surprised if you read them. And a lot of them are just loving it because it's Indiana Jones. And it was another chance to see him do it, because this probably was the final time, not maybe it's necessarily the final time he's going to play the character, but the final time I believe that the movie will center around him. If he's doing a 6, I will laugh. So, and I don't have to worry about, feeling bad about that. I will literally laugh my ass off because I just find that to be ridiculous. So, anywho, I love all of you. Here's the thing. What I will try to do, I will try to make a deal with you regardless of my day, regardless of how I'm doing. From here, I'll make a commitment that I will do my best to not, it's not that I'm going to hide it, but I don't need to bring you down, right? Definitely on my live stream. If I want to have something to say, or if I'm in a bad mood or something like that, I may reserve that for, in fact, I will say now, I will reserve that for a produced video rather than a live stream, because to me, the energy, like I can fuss and muss and, go off and in a video and then edit it the right way to where it's not nearly as bad as the energy that you get from a live stream where someone's like, so I get it. I try to look at things from all perspectives. And so that said, I make a deal with you. I will not live stream my irritated state of mind as best as I can. I may go off on things still, right? I mean, that's just part of what we all do. And I will reserve that for, I'll reserve those type of videos for, those type of moments for video only and not live stream. That way you can have a warning too, because really, if you come on and watch it live, you really have no warning for what I'm going to do, right? So, today is Thursday. I will see all of you on Saturday again. Don't know what the future holds, but I'm really trying to figure out some new and think of some new innovative content. If anybody wants to reach out and you're interested in talking about it, please let me know. I am open to any and everything, but that's one of the things that I'm working on at the same time that I'm trying to live life, but I'm really trying to think of something different and unique. We'll just go with that. Leave it there. So I love each and every one of you. I hope that you have a wonderful, blessed rest of your week. Tomorrow's Friday, one last day for most of us. Have a wonderful weekend. I will see you Saturday evening. I may start streaming. I know I've talked about this before, but I'm really going to do it. But one of the things I have to do is make a new intro. So I'm hoping to get to that stuff. I have told most of y'all this, and I think you know it, but I am working on something, starting a business, and I'm trying to get that off the ground. And that, coupled with my state of mind, has made it very difficult to get on the computer and be creative and make a new intro. Obviously, I have new artwork. You can see Sky and I's picture, Sky and Mai's picture, my picture, Sky and my picture. In the thumbnails, I just need to make a few new videos, intro, outro, and then also a countdown. I wanted to make a new countdown because I think the countdown, I can't even remember, but I think the countdown says, live at 7:20 p.m. Mountain Time. So got to change that and be a little looser with it, So again, I love all of you. Each and every one of you are unique and different. That's what makes you special. It's not the opposite. Just a quick side note, and I'll try not to go off on a huge tangent, but the powers that be continue to want to have you believe, and all of us, that we are nothing, right? That they are better for either their position in politics, their fame and fortune in entertainment, maybe their fame and fortune in sports, maybe their fame and fortune on YouTube, whatever it is, they want you to believe that because of that, they are somehow better. They become the powers that be, see? And what somebody with power realizes is that people below them don't think highly of themselves, then they'll never compete for their precious power. So when you're moving along through life, you know, and I say this because, and I know a lot of y'all don't know me, and some of you may not even believe it, but it is documented history, you know, that I was quite a drug dealer, and to the point where I became even what I call a drug lord status, and was making millions in that business and lost everything, right? But I had the money and the power for a while, long enough to know how destructive it is. That's all I'll say. So, you know, be careful what you wish for, number one, but realize this: not having that money and power, there's a lot of freedom that allows you to enjoy life at a different level. And to me, again, this is my opinion, but it is an opinion about the state of life, right? And the meaning of life, if you will. If you think power and money is the important thing, then it becomes the important thing to you. I will say that. It absolutely does. But if you realize that those are truly just material things, and the real joy comes from a whole different experience, a higher level of being, all I can tell you is you realize which one is more important and which one truly weighs more. So you, each and every one of you, are awesome. You're incredible. You are special. And I will see you again on Saturday. Don't know if it'll be the same time, but definitely see you on Saturday sometime. Have a wonderful Friday tomorrow and a wonderful beginning to your weekend. Peace.
I switch here, I'm a strange fuck. Consist on ain't something I could say well. Throw my change into the wishing for a change well. Wish a day is swell life for the next come. And when the next come, pretend that it's the best one. Like I ain't even gonna try and say that to the next one.